Greetings and salutations to all our friends and constant companions. Welcome to another Murder Memories program. In this program, we will explore the mysteries of the dismembered body in Yousef Abad and the secret that emerged from the heart of a garbage dump. A murder case that occurred in Tehran in 2015. I would like to remind them that all of the content of this program is facts and evidence that was narrated by the investigators and detectives of this case, and out of respect for the survivors of this murder, no interference has been made in the content. So stay tuned with us to investigate this strange case. The story began on a cold morning on February 15th. It was a simple report with a regular call to the police station that a suspicious bag of garbage was found in one of the alleys of Yousef Abad. But when our team arrived, we were faced with something much more than just a suspicious piece of garbage. Inside the bag were the dismembered parts of a human body, arms and legs. For an experienced detective, such a scene has a complete story in itself. This type of investigation usually has two clear messages. First, the killer was in a state of extreme confusion or panic. And second, he did everything he could to conceal the victim's identity. Dismemberment makes the body easier to transport and more difficult to identify. This level of violence comes either from deep anger or from a heavy fear of covering up the crime. Our first hypothesis was that the murder had occurred elsewhere, and the killer had brought the body to this quiet neighborhood to dispose of it. This means that the scope of our research could have been the entire city of Tehran. In that moment, there was us, a strange mystery and a nameless victim. The first step to solving this horrific puzzle was to find out the woman's identity, a job that soon changed its course when it came to a concerned mother. 2 days later, on February 17th, a middle-aged woman entered the police station, agitated and trembling. In our world, the moment the victim's identity is revealed is the heart of the case. Until now, you've only been dealing with cold, hard evidence. But as soon as a name is placed on a body, everything changes. The case becomes a person's life and my death becomes a story. That woman was Laleh's mother. He said his daughter had gone out since the morning of February 15th and never returned. Laleh had said she was going mountain climbing with her friends, but by nightfall there was no sign of her, nor was she answering her phone. The mother had called every single one of her friends, and this was where the first major contradiction in her case emerged. None of Laleh's friends knew about the mountain climbing plan. This little lie, this simple concealment, was the first serious clue. That means Laleh was hiding something, a person, an appointment. This was our team's question. Did Laleh really go to see Kyo that day? Given the description the mother gave of her daughter and the dismembered body we had in the morgue, I had a frightening suspicion. We took a blood sample from the mother and sent it for matching. The report arrived sometime later. Our guess was correct. The victim was Laleh herself. Now the mystery had a name, and when the victim finds a name, you'll know that the killer is hiding somewhere in the past with the same name, and you just have to find him. There is an unwritten rule in murder cases that my statistics confirm. In most murders, the killer is one of the people closest to the victim. That's why we focused on relationships and people close to Laleh from the very beginning. When we talked to his friend, only one name was repeated: her 44-year-old boyfriend, a man with whom Laleh had spent 18 years of her life in a romantic relationship. 18 years is almost half of Laleh's life. It was clear that this long-term relationship should be the starting point for our research. Laleh's friends and family painted a clear picture for us of the man and their relationship. That man came from a very religious family. My mother had a lot of influence on me. Laleh, with her modern appearance and style of dress, in no way fit the standards of that family. This was the biggest obstacle to their marriage, and here we are faced with a familiar paradox. A man who claims religious principles and beliefs in front of his family, but secretly continues his extramarital affair for years. This type of duplicity usually comes from a weak and deceitful personality. What was even more bitter was that Laleh had introduced the man to her family, and Laleh's family had welcomed him. But that man always hid Laleh from his own family. Our research showed that this relationship was practically one-sided. Laleh treated him like a wife, cooking, cleaning, taking care of, but he paid all his own expenses. In contrast, that man was a real energy eater. At the same time, he was also in a relationship with another woman. He even played a strange psychological game. He encouraged Laleh to meet her suitor. Then, on these same occasions, he would present evidence of infidelity to her in order to maintain control of the relationship and escape the burden of marriage. In our research, technology is usually our best friend. The cell phone tracking left a solid piece of evidence on my desk. The suspect's cell phone was lit at exactly the same spot where Laleh's cell phone was last active. With this psychological profile and this technical evidence, it was time to face the man at the center of this 18-year-old twisted relationship. Before checking out the rest of the case, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next interesting and strange cases. The interrogation room is not always clean, where truth and lies mix and the detective must separate them piece by piece. When we caught the main suspect and brought him to the police station, we were confronted with a calm, insensitive, and seemingly indifferent man. Years of experience have taught me that false stories have a meaning: neat, clean, and clutter-free, something that has nothing to do with the truth. That man's story was exactly that. He claimed that on the morning of the incident, he and Laleh had gone to have breakfast when suddenly 4 men attacked them. They stole their property, took their tulips, and ran away. For an experienced team, this sounded more like a Hollywood script. There were no witnesses, no calls to the police, no credible details, and it was full of contradictions. When people are faced with real evidence, the wall of lies collapses. When he realized that his story had no buyer and that we had his cell phone, his wall of denial cracked and then completely collapsed, and behind that wall a truth was revealed that was neither complicated nor cinematic, only simpler, more banal, and therefore much more terrifying. A murderer's confession is not just a description of what happened. It's usually an attempt to justify what he did and lighten the burden of his guilt. Our job as detectives is to pull the truth out of these justifications. From a certain point on, I would call Mohammed by his first name. He started telling stories about the morning of the incident. The 15th, he said that he and Laleh had a date that day at a coffee shop in Tehran, Pars. He said that Laleh had been anxious and nervous from the start. After breakfast, they would get in the car and their usual argument would start again, the discussion of an 18-year relationship that had never gotten anywhere. Laleh was tired of this uncertainty and was pressuring Mohammed. Mohammed said that in the midst of Laleh's anger, she had cursed at her mother, who was the most sensitive part of her being. That one sentence was like a match, dropped in the middle of gunpowder. He stops the car on the side of the highway and attacks Laleh. He squeezes Laleh's throat with one hand. He covers his mouth with his other hand. Laleh was completely defenseless at that moment. His left hand was in a lot of pain and was almost immobile due to arthritis, for which he had just undergone physical therapy. My right hand was wrapped around the seat belt as usual and stuck. He could practically not defend himself. A few seconds later, his body relaxes and he remains motionless. Mohammed claimed he did not intend to kill him. He said he thought Laleh had just fainted. Like 2 months ago when Laleh fainted in the pool and was saved by the emergency services. He said he just wanted to silence her. But Mohammed's crime did not end with Laleh's death. The events that followed took the case to a darker and more disturbing stage. The decisions that murderers make in the early hours after a crime are usually based on fear, not logic. Mohammed walks towards his house with a body in the car. The second floor of a building. He said his hands were shaking for fear that the neighbors would see him. He carries the body into the house in terror. Then he goes out and buys some large garbage bags and a knife. The justification he gave for this action was more shocking than anything else. He said that because he had back pain and couldn't carry the body, he had to cut it into pieces. This wasn't logic. This was the argument of a scared, weak man who had lost control of the situation and committed a crime 1,000 times more horrific to solve the problem of carrying the body. Mohammed put Laleh's body parts in garbage bags and scattered them around the city. With this horrific confession, the puzzle of the crime was completed, and now Mohammed had to answer for all his actions in court. In Laleh's family court, they demanded retribution. Mohammed stood in the defendant's seat and said something in a trembling voice that was shockingly contradictory. He said, "I loved Laleh and I intended to marry her." A statement that was different from his 18 years of running away from responsibility and postponing the decision from earth to heaven. The same family that Mohammed destroyed Laleh's life to please for so many years has now completely cut her off. They did not appear at any of the court hearings. When the judge asked him about Laleh's bus, which was never found, Mohammed said, "He doesn't know where it is." The court's verdict was clear. Qisas Mohammed was one step away from the gallows when the most important event in the case happened at the last moment. Laleh's family has forfeited their right to retribution, to consent, something I haven't understood until today. With this consent, the case was returned to court again for the general aspect of the crime, and the final verdict was this: 10 years in prison, 74 lashes, and 20 full blood money payments. Legally, the case was closed, but for us, everything doesn't always end with a court ruling. Years have passed, but this is one of those cases that you can't erase from your mind. Sometimes I wonder who was really to blame. Mohammed's weak character, who didn't dare to accept the responsibility of his love, or Laleh's strange and long-standing insistence, who stayed in a toxic relationship for 18 years, or perhaps Mohammed's destructive and controlling influence. The bitterness of the story is that the fate of two people was destroyed. Laleh, who lost her life in the worst possible way, and Mohammed, who wasted the best years of his life, first in a hopeless relationship and then in prison. Some cases are more about a chain of wrong choices that lead a person step by step towards an irreversible tragedy. To investigate the mystery of the murder of a Tehrani teacher who shocked the police after it was revealed, I suggest you watch this program. We are always looking forward to hearing your kind comments. I wish you health and prosperity. Be victorious and happy. Yes,